Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 5th day of December 2018. Well, I wanted to answer a question from Suzanne. She wrote a question on Stepping Aside's Facebook page. Yeah, there's one of those too. And anyhow, she wanted to know about geomancy, and because I talked about it, and I have that geomancy reading up on the blog. Geomancy is an older divination tool. And it can be, I don't actually know how old it is. Agrippa talks about it in his, hold on, let me look and see what it is called. The 3 books of occult philosophy. There's the 3 books, but there's a 4th. And there's a section, I believe it begins that book, called Of Geomancy. And sometimes you'll see that excerpted out as just a separate, publication. But it's actually in the 4th book by Cornelius Agrippa. But I think that Hartman has written a book, Greer has written a book, Skinner maybe, I'm not sure. There's not a lot out there on it. Israel Regarde also did one. That's very good. They're not very long, really. But basically, you're talking about 16 different geomantic symbols. And they're made by throwing 4 either sticks or pebbles, or in my case, I've done both sticks, and I've also done just some discs here. And I kind of like them the best because the sticks are actually twigs from branches of a hawthorn tree, and so they don't lay right. And so you kind of have to make a decision. Okay, which way am I going to roll it to view the symbol? But basically, you're looking at 1s and 2s, and so and they go in the order of fire, air, water, and earth. And so what I did to make just some discs, because I like runes, I went ahead and I did 1 on one side, and this is air. Okay, so that would be a single dot, and then on the reverse side of it, I have the 2 dots. And so however they throw, well, there goes one on the floor. But however they throw, you're going to put them in the order of fire, air, water, and earth, and there's going to be your symbol. And you're going to throw them 4 times. And then from there, you're going to take the top line of the 4 to create the 5th, the second line of the 4 to create the 6th, the third line to create the 7th, the 4th line to create the 8. Now that gives you the top 8 of the shield chart, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll get one from before. So this is what that looks like, and it reads from right to left. And so the first 4 here, so then these 4 here would be the first 4 that I threw and created, and then from that I get the others. Okay, and then from here to get these bottom ones, we start combining. And so a 1 and a 1 would be a 2. A 2 and a 2 would be a 2. A 1 and a 2 would result in a 1. And a 2 and a 2 would result in a 2. So odd. So if you add them together and it's an odd, if it's a 3, then it's going to be a 1. All right. If you add them together and you get an even number, then you're going to put 2 dots. And you're going to do that for each grouping of 2, as you can see, for the second level. And then from there, you take the 2 on each side, and you get what's called the left and right witness, which can be interpreted in a variety of ways. And then the bottom one is the judge, or the outcome. Now, the 4th position, as in astrology, is considered the end of the matter. So if these 3 at the bottom don't give you what you need, you can go up there and take a look and give that as your excuse me, as your to inform your interpretation. If you still don't have a clear picture of what's going on, you can take this bottom judge and go to the very first symbol that you threw and add those together and combine them and come up with the final one, the reconciler. Okay, that's called the reconciler, if you really need that. Now, this can also be transmitted into a chart like this. Now, Agrippa has a little different way of doing this. Agrippa doesn't do it straight on. Here, this would be considered a house chart, okay? And you would be looking at the houses and all the glyphs in the houses. And so you would take the first 12, you would leave off the bottom 3, and you would enter them into each house. And so you would start here with house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And basically, when you do that, see, you can look at these geomantic symbols or glyphs, or figures, as they're called, in terms of each house. Now, like I say, Agrippa doesn't do it straightforward. He moves things around, and so you would have to look at geomancy to take a look at how he does it. I've tried it both ways, and honestly, I don't know. I just tend to do things a little straightforward. The other thing that you can do on a shield chart here is you can start at the very first one and just read it as it just sort of as a story, as it unfolds. Or what I do is you can see how you've got 4 sections here, basically, okay? Ultimately, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And so what I do there is I look at that in terms of each week. Okay, but you can see, you can look at how you could look at them in terms of the 4 elements. You could do anything you want to do with geomancy because it just lends itself to whatever creativity you have, really. And so what I do is, like I say, I typically start with this, and sometimes I'll do this in a reading, but it just depends. It just depends. If I can get a lot of information from the shield chart, then that's what I use. But again, I think it's just a fun way of looking at things. I don't know. I like divination tools, and I like things that are rune-based, I guess. And so this just struck me as something that I might, really like to do. And I had just found it. And in my research, I research, which is research, okay? Religious folks, they've got their, their text or whatever. Witches tend to, as they say, the story goes, or the joke is, witches have research libraries, and it's true. My husband saw my Kindle one time and went, "What have you done?" Because, you just have to know things. Witches are curious. We have to know things. So we do. Anyhow, let's get on with the reading for today. But anyhow, Suzanne, that's a little bit about what geomancy is. It's been around for a long, long time. Some people, they'll just use stones or seeds, or, I think the Chinese use geomancy, and they might do it a little differently. I don't know if maybe it came from the I Ching, or the I Ching came about the same time, or because there seems to be a feeling of that, as you would have with the I Ching, so, which I also like. That's why I like human design, because it's the interpretations are based on the I Ching, so, along with a little bit of planetary information thrown in as well. There's just something about the old divination methods that I find appealing. So let's count 13 and see what we have for today on this day of change, in this catalytic month of an integrative month of December. Well, we have the 10 of Wands. And this is many, many burdens, isn't it? And he's not really paying attention. He's plodding along, but his burdens are sort of in front of his face, aren't they? 10 is new beginnings, but, maybe he's bringing things to establish some new beginnings. Maybe he's going to build something or put up some kind of a structure. But when we think of wands, we think of will. So when I see all of this, I think someone's being willful. But at the same time, it could just simply be that he's overwhelmed, and he's got a big struggle right now. But the other thing that I have to say is that he's getting in the way of himself, or he's letting his will or his problems or his issues that he's dealing with get in the way of himself. So clearly on this day of change, if you're experiencing that, then you may want to think about another method of doing things. learn to prioritize, maybe figure out what really needs to get done. And it's like when your house is a mess, when you've got kids and the house is just looks like a bomb went off in it, you know. Toys are everywhere, clothes are everywhere, shoes are everywhere. What I used to do is I read this tip one time, or maybe it was on a talk show. It was probably Phil Donahue or something like that. I was watching Phil Donahue. Used to watch him all the time. And he probably had somebody on there that was giving tips for if you have a messy house, you're having trouble organizing and all of that. I mean, I only had two kids, so you would think that I mean, I know women that had a whole house full. So, and I don't know, they just were very comfortable with the chaos, and I've never actually. Everything is chaotic because I have all this stuff, you know, but I'm never comfortable in the chaos, and so I had to figure out a way to not look at it in a way that made me insane. And so what I did, I took this advice that I heard, and it was just start look in one spot, see what needs to be done, and do it. Don't look at anything else, just the one spot. And that seems to work well for me. I clean up that one spot, and if I feel like it, I move somewhere else. If I don't, if I'm exhausted after that, if it's just too much for me, then I stop, right? But I find that if I just do one thing, I feel energized and I can do something else. And pretty soon, a whole lot of stuff gets cleaned up, and I don't even know how that happened. The other thing we used to do is, and we didn't do it very often, but I tried this with the kids, to just say, everybody go and clean up something very, very quickly. Just take 5 minutes, get as much done as you can, focus, 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 get as much done as you can in 5 minutes and see what happens. Amazing amount of things can happen because it gets to be fun. It's almost like, what can I get done, you know? But in any event, that's what I think of when I think of this. It's like, oh God, just put that down. Life doesn't need to be like that. Just put down the burden. Pick up one. Don't take them all. I have a tendency when I do that same thing though. When I bring groceries in from the car, I'll try to bring them all. I used to do that when I was ill, and my husband would just just stop. Try. He used to say, "Don't be a pack mule." We've been married a really long time. It'll be 40 years next May, so that's why you can say things like pack mule. Anyway, we have Sawillo. So that's the basically the rune of will or the higher self and the rune of will. It's a sun influenced rune. You can see the as above so below aspects of it against the horizontal plane. You can think of it as a lightning bolt of illumination. He needs that. Let's put down our burdens for today. Why don't we? I think today might be the funeral for President Bush. So, irrespective of how you felt about him, um, some have some very, very strong feelings about him. I'm kind of one of them. So, but if we can just set those aside and just hold space for those who loved him and who felt that they added something to their lives, okay, that he added something to their lives. No matter what we think of some of these really powerful people that pass, that you know, we look back on their legacy, and if it was one that was varied, as we'll just say today, it's hard, I think, to let go of what we believe we know about those people. The thing is unless it's really been out there and a common knowledge, a lot of it is speculation. It's based on maybe testimony of people, but you have to take the leap of faith to believe them. And so we're kind of in that weird area where there's all kinds of things that have come out about the man and about men like him in power. And I don't know, you know, but maybe on today, if today's, I think today is the day that they're eulogizing him. I just glanced at the news and saw something about his son eulogizing him. So um, I think that, you know, if we can try to avoid the negativity and any outrage we might feel over the behavior of him throughout his life, uh, if we could just hold space for today for those that either don't understand these things about him or don't feel the same way, that just don't see it that way. Particularly the family. That's the most important thing. We have a very large group of people because they have a big family that's grieving over the loss of the patriarch. They just lost the matriarch. They just lost Barbara just some months ago, not all that long ago. We were there with her. So um, losing a first lady. So I think that I think people are complicated. I think that people get involved in things that are bad, that are good, that are indifferent, and their lives are just very complicated. And if we could all just hold space for his spirit uh, and to trust that whatever it is his spirit needs to do right now, that it will do. You know, if it needs to go for healing, if it needs to go for understanding, if it needs to transcend, whatever. You know, here's the thing. When we come through the veil of forgetting when we're born, we don't know the mission that we planned. We don't know the overall theme of our life. Uh, maybe we were to be a catalyst. Maybe we were to be a negative influence. Maybe we were to be someone who harmed others. Maybe, you know, we were to provide a window into that behavior that shouldn't happen for other people. Um, when you look at, I mean, you have to wonder, what is the greater message of pedophilia in priests? What is the greater message there? Why would someone choose to come in and do something like that? Because I believe they choose it. If you take the judgment out of all of it, if you take the feeling, the emotion out of all of it, it's just stuff to experience. Even the really, really awful stuff is stuff to experience. So we only begin to attach the kind of significance that we do to it when we come into the body, when we're actually experiencing it. So it's why survivors have such a difficult time healing, because it's difficult to let go of all of the emotion and fear surrounding, you know, if it was just one time or multiple times, if it was throughout childhood, if it was whenever this happened, however it happened, it makes it difficult to let go. And so, however you feel about someone who was as powerful a man as President Bush was, um, he was still a man, he was still a father and a husband and a brother and a son and a friend and all kinds of things to people that have a different feeling about him. So if we can hold space for their hearts today and for his spirit and his soul to ascend to something better than this earthly plane, then that would be a wonderful blessing for him, wouldn't it? Irrespective of what we believe about this man. So it's a tough thing. It really is. But that's what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to hold space for him and for his family and send blessings of love. Anyhow, thanks so much for coming by. Check out the blog and at imsteppingaside.com. And if you haven't seen the tarot reading and the geomancy reading for the month, they're up. I have another one I think I'm going to do today, maybe, I did some writing yesterday. I've got 2 books going, and I like to keep 2 going at once. It keeps, otherwise I get bored and I have to go do something else. At least if I have another book I'm writing, then, it keeps me in that mode. And I've been harvesting and, with the garden and everything, I've been so busy that in canning and all the things I've been doing, I haven't had a whole lot of time to continue writing. So it's been really a lot of fun the last couple of weeks to get back to that. And uh, the one book I'm writing was going to be one thing, and now it's sort of expanded into something else. Uh, and the other one's a novel, and I'm not sure where I am in it. I might be halfway through. I might not be quite halfway through. So anyhow, we're going to see where that one goes. I'm sort of experimenting with a little different focuses now that I'm into a different section of the book. And so we'll see. I might take a little darker focus maybe to kind of give a little bit of excitement to the whole thing. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know. I never know where I go with any of this stuff. I just start writing and see where it takes me. So anyhow, thanks so much for coming by. If you're new, welcome. If you've been back, if you're coming back, you've been here before, welcome back. And I think we're going to go do our walk now. I think it's about 28 degrees out. It's supposed to be about 28 around 11, and it's almost 11 now. So yesterday I got up, it was 13. It was 22 this morning. So I don't know. We're waiting. We're not leaving right away. So that's why I'm doing this now, and then we'll go on the walk afterwards. So hopefully it'll be warm enough and we can bundle up and take a nice walk. So anyhow, we'll see you tomorrow. I think tomorrow, yeah, today's Wednesday, so we'll be back tomorrow. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, prioritize your burdens, let yourself off the hook. It doesn't all have to get done in one day. Anyhow, blessed be.